Hello everybody and welcome back to Flying with OverKill F-18C Hornet, and today we're going to be taking a look at the countermeasure system. That will be the ALE-47 countermeasure system in conjunction with the RWR and electronic warfare page. So the last few tutorials we looked at the SLAM previously and got close and personal. You guys got to see what happens in a live combat scenario, using the SLAM and the TGP with active threats down on the ground coming up at us. Before that, we looked at the harm. Again, a seed weapon. You're going to get up close and personal. You're going to be going into hot areas. And it dawned on me that out of both those tutorials, I did not show you guys how the countermeasures are used and how they are set up. Now, we're not going to so much go into demonstration of said countermeasures today, but I do want to break down how they work and what they are. Okay, so by doing a couple different things, we're going to hopefully get an understanding. This is another one that absolutely requires the understanding of the RWR and electronic warfare page. So once again, I'm going to be posting a card up on the video right now and a link down in the description below to the RWR and EW page tutorial. I highly suggest you watch that if you haven't yet, because again, just like using the wrong weapon against the wrong target, it's going to be the same game with using the wrong countermeasure against the wrong threat. If you use chaff against an IR guided missile, you're going to eat the missile. If you use flares against a radar guided missile, you're going to eat the missile. Okay, so well, odds are higher, I should say, that you're going to. Maneuverability still comes into play, but you guys get the gist. All right, so I'm not going to spend too much time lollygaggling around here. So here's what I'm going to do first is I'm going to bring up our lights test for a second to go over something I've gone over before, but I want you guys to see it. So these are enunciators that you guys will be getting when you are getting various threats on the RWR or electronic warfare page. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sort of just zoom in here a second and lock the camera up so I don't make you guys sick. First one up here is dispense. What this means, and I'll go over what this is talking about in a second, but when the countermeasure system is in what's called semi-automatic and a dispense program has been selected, this light will illuminate telling you, hey, I have a profile ready, please activate me. And we'll do that with one of the dispense buttons, and we'll go over that in a minute. Okay, then you have SAM, surface-to-air missile. This indicates that a surface-to-air missile system is tracking the aircraft. AAA, exactly what it sounds like, anti-aircraft artillery is tracking the aircraft. AI, aircraft intercept, okay, or airborne intercept, is so basically a fighter is locking you up. And then continuous wave. Continuous wave is going to be things like your targeting radars and search radars that are down on the ground that aren't necessarily identified as a surface-to-air missile system, but we are interpreting as such. Okay, continuous wave, things that are going to give you continuous wave is an AMRAAM when it goes into Pitbull. Okay, so for those of you who don't understand, real quick, the AMRAAM, when it's first launched from the aircraft, if it's too far out, I think it's outside of 10 miles in DCS, basically ballpark that area. Okay, so let's say we fire at 15 miles. Okay, what's going to happen first is for the first few miles, the aircraft must maintain radar lock of the target. Okay, the AMRAAM has the ability to use its own onboard radar to go active and home in on the target, and at that point we call it Pitbull. And that is when the missile's onboard radar takes over and no longer needs any guidance from the aircraft. At that point, when the missile goes Pitbull, we as the pilot can turn and run. Okay, but we can't do it before then. Okay, otherwise the missile goes dumb. When the missile goes Pitbull, this continuous wave light will likely light up in the aircraft, letting us know, hey, you're getting this continuous pulse against the aircraft of radar energy. Something's coming for you. Okay, that's how we're interpreting that. Okay, so once again, real quick, means dispense means you have a countermeasure system ready to go. Surface-to-air missile system, AAA, anti-aircraft artillery, airborne intercept, a fighter, continuous wave, something from the ground or a missile in the air is coming at the aircraft. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and jump down below here. And let's go ahead and unpause it. We don't need her paused anymore. And we're going to look at everything down here for a minute. By the way, before you can dispense any countermeasures, no matter what, you must have your master arm set. If you have the dispenser system active but master arm is off, you're not going to release anything. Okay? So let's go ahead and come down here again, and let's go ahead and go into a pause. And we'll start with the electronic warfare page. And I know I've called this the early warning page. That's completely wrong. EW is electronic warfare. And we're going to sort of work our way from the top down. Right now we have the ALR67, which is a receiver of basically the RWR. And you can see that here, ALR67. Now I went over this in a previous tutorial, but I'm going to go ahead and swing through it one more time just to make sure we're all on the same page. Obviously this is the power button for the RWR, and I highly recommend you guys have this active before you get airborne. Okay, so obviously that's the power button, turns it on. First sort of run through a bit, and then go on your about merry way. Display this by hitting limit. You can see the limit comes down here. Will indicate that, or set the EW page to only display the top 6 highest priority contacts, radar contacts that are on the ground. Radar emitters, I should say. Special currently not active in DCS World. Offset, we've seen that before. It spreads everything out when you have things that are on top of each other, but the thing to remember when you hit offset is that you lose the azimuth, okay? The direction from the aircraft at the point that we hit offset now becomes wrong. This contact is not truly at almost 3 o'clock. It's still at its original position, which was up here at about 2 o'clock, okay? So something to think about. And then the bit test if you want to run the bit. Okay, then we have the dispense type, and it is unknown, airborne intercept, AAA, or sorry, excuse me, it starts in normal. Sorry, I can't remember if I said normal or unknown. Starts in normal, sorry, airborne intercept, AAA, unknown, and friendly. Okay, these are the priority types for what will be displayed on the RWR and EW page. I typically just leave it in the norm. I haven't ever found a reason to use it. ECM, or electronic countermeasures. Electronic countermeasures, the best way to describe it is when a radar beam hits the aircraft and we activate the electronic countermeasure system, assuming that the aircraft's in the proper position, what it will do is, on your radar screen, me being the one tracking the aircraft, when the aircraft turns its ECM on, I'll get a whole bunch of static and ghost images and just a whole lot of noise in the radar return that will make it very, very difficult to ascertain or maintain lock of the aircraft I was trying to track. Now, caveat to this, my understanding is at the time of making this video, this particular portion of the aircraft is not functioning. Okay, I normally set it to receive just as get habit. That way when it's ready, I have that habit. And we'll go over real quick what each one does. Standby, exactly what it sounds like, puts the system into a standby. It's powered on, but it's not active. Bit test, again, it's pretty self-explanatory, runs a bit test. Receive, what this means is that when a radar source hits the aircraft is then going to determine the priority or threat, I should say, of the radar, and then determine whether or not to activate the electronic countermeasure system. Okay, so this receive means when a radar hits it, the computer is going to look at it and say, all right, should I turn on or not? It decides. And then finally you have ECM transmit. We have now forced it, the electronic countermeasure system, to come on. Okay, so we're throwing that static out. Okay, the thing that you have to remember is when ECM works correctly, my understanding is that you can also affect your friendlies radars that are nearby. So again, something to think about, but at this current time I don't believe the system works yet. I haven't been able to find any documentation to support that I'm wrong on that. Then you have your dispenser switch. By default, when you start up the aircraft, this will be in the off position. While this is in the off position, none of the ALE-47 or countermeasure systems, what this is available to us. Going into on, we have our different modes. You can see it going through a test right now. Once we see standby, we're ready to go. So right now it's going through its pit, where it's bit, excuse me, not pit. And we're going to let it keep running its thing for a second. When we flip it up into bypass, we will no longer be using any of the program systems. At that point, one direction of your countermeasure switch, because your countermeasure switch is just a forward and backward switch. It's a China hat is what it's called. If you have the A10 Warthog, or you look up the picture of a Warthog throttle, the red China hat switch down at the bottom is what I use for my countermeasures. Just to give you an idea. When you push it forward, either flares will come out or a program will go out. When you push it backwards, you know, the chaff or other program will go out. Okay, so that's what bypass does. Bypass has, basically what that says is I don't want to use any of your programs. I don't want to use anything. When I push it forward, I want flares. When I push it back, I want chaff. And as many times as I push it back, as many times as I push it forward, that's how many it goes. So it gives you complete manual control of how many, how fast, and what. But again, that requires more forethought on the pilot and, you know, one more thing for you to do. So we're going to go ahead and keep it in the on position. You can see that we're currently in standby. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to use mode to cycle the ALE-47 modes and talk about them. I know this is a lot of information, guys, so stay with me. First one is manual. Manual is the program that we have selected and edited, which I'll show you in just a moment, we choose what that program is. Okay. Then you have the coming in here into semi-automatic. Semi-automatic, basically the program will choose the best countermeasure program for response to the current threat, but we determine when to fire that countermeasure program. So scenario real quick, surface-to-air radar locks up the aircraft. In semi-automatic mode, the ALE-47 says, okay, here's what's locking us up. Here's what I think the best number of countermeasures to drop and the best type of countermeasures to drop and how fast to drop them. And then that's when that dispense light that I showed you up above on the warning panel up there next to the right DDI, that's when that dispense light will light up. When that dispense light lights up, it means the ALE-47 has picked a countermeasure system, and it's up to us to actually hit a button that will activate it. Okay, and I believe that's aft if I remember correctly, but we'll test that here in a minute. Okay, actually probably we won't test that, truth be told. But let's go ahead and go forward, and then we have auto. Auto, everything is done by the system. Once it receives that the aircraft is being tracked or locked up by a hostile radar, it will automatically pick the number of countermeasures, how fast to drop them, and the type to drop, and it will just start dropping them. It won't warn you. You don't have to push anything. Now, this is great depending on the scenario. As a last-minute ditch effort, you know, you didn't have time to set anything up, whatever, you just sort of wanted to go out. The bad thing about this particular thing is that we have seen time and time again as being used, it's extremely wasteful of countermeasures. It will just start dumping them and dumping them and dumping them before you know it, and when you actually need one, you don't have anything available. See, what will happen is that the radar will lock. It'll start dumping the countermeasures, but there may not actually be a missile in the air, or that missile may have been defeated. You know, we may be out of quote-unquote a dangerous situation, but because that radar on the ground still has lock on us, the computer is going to keep pumping out those countermeasures. So like I said, essentially they're wasted because there's no threat in the air. Okay, so try to stay away from auto. I highly recommend that. So by selecting, let's go ahead and actually go back to manual now. So by boxing the ALE-47, we can now see arm, we can see our number of chaff, we can see our number of flare. Okay, these ones here are for the external countermeasure pods, which currently are not implemented in DCS. So we're not going to worry about those just yet. Okay, and the same thing with the, this is the jamming system here, obviously not activated. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and go into the arm page. So in manual mode, we get, this is where we can actually program up to 5 different programs to employ when we're ready. So by hitting the countermeasure dispense switch aft, which is D on the keyboard by default, we will display countermeasure using program 1. Okay, and then if we use counter dispense switch forward, it will activate countermeasure dispense switch 5. Okay, and so what that looks like is, for example, if we go to program 1, okay, and how this works here is you have your chaff, your flare, these are external stores, so those aren't available yet, repeat and interval. So this is going to drop 1 chaff, 1 flare 10 times 1 second apart. Okay, so let's go ahead and just go outside for a second and take a peek at what this looks like. Oh, I locked the camera, that's why. There we go. So if I hit D on the keyboard, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, and the program should stop. And I don't know if you guys could see it, but the chaff was dropping too. It looked like little sparkles coming out from the bottom of the plane going out the back. So as you guys are watching that, if you need to back it up a little bit, watch that and pay attention. And then if we go in, so that was program 1. Now let's go see what program 5 looks like, and we can use the step button here. Okay, and now what we're going to see is repeat twice, 1 chaff, 1 flare. Okay, so we hit E, 1 chaff, 1 flare, 2 times. That's it, done. Now we got to be careful here because I think I'm only down to 12 here. So now if we want to change one of these, so by default, as I said, the forward button, so E on the keyboard, will always use program 5. Okay, so that one's no matter what always there. And then D will use whatever program we have currently selected. You can currently see manual 5 up here, and if we go back to the main screen, we can use the step button to step through that there as well. Okay, so if you can remember all that stuff, that's great. Hats off to you. So let's go into manual 2, and let's change things a little bit. So let's do this. Let's say we want to drop chaff. Let's adjust the number. We want to do 4 chaff. Let's say no flares, because I need to save my flares. Okay, and we want to do a repeat, right? Let's have it repeat 3 times at 1/4 of a second. And you can go ridiculously high on this. Okay, 2 seconds apart, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Okay, so it's 5 seconds apart is what you can max out at. Let's go 1/4 of a second. So these things are going to drop super rapid. So we're going to hit save, okay? We're in manual 2, then we're going to go to the return. We're going to hit F2 again and unlock my camera again. And this time, we will once again use E. Oops, nope, that was the wrong one, sorry. D, and you guys see that. So real quick, I'm going to try to zoom in. Hope you guys can see those. So it's D on the keyboard. Okay, so no matter what, E, like I said, will always use program 5. And D will use whatever program you have selected here. Okay, now here's the drag. You always want to try to configure this as soon as you get off the ground. If I remember correctly, you cannot configure this while you have weight on wheels. I don't think it'll let you, because it won't let you activate the system. And then emergency jettison, by the way, this button will dump all jettisons that you have. You would use this in a situation where, like, you're inbound for a crash landing, you know, you're in a bad shape, and the purpose of this is to make sure that none of the flares can explode while landing. So if we were to hit that, there they go. That's all the rest of the flares. Doesn't drop the chaff, because the chaff obviously isn't incendiary, it's not an explosive, right? It's not going to blow you up. Okay, so real quick recap. All right, we have dispense switch aft, which will use whatever program we currently have selected. Okay, dispense switch forward will always use program 5. Okay, the different modes, you have semi-automatic, which will alert you up here when the a countermeasure system has been determined, a countermeasure program has been set by the aircraft, and then you would hit I believe it is countermeasure switch forward to activate it. Okay, and then you have auto, which again, very wasteful for your countermeasure system, but the computer system automatically picks it and dispenses it. Okay, to get into the setup, you have to make sure you are have the ALE47 box, go into the ARM, change your program as desired. What I would typically do is set one up for chaff, set one up for flare, based on, you know, the threat of the area. So I would have one program running, you know, I push the switch one direction, it's for a radar guided missile, push it the other direction for a infrared. Very seldom will you be in a situation where you'll need both, but it could happen, so that may be something you want to think about as well. Maybe 1 chaff to 3 flare kind of thing. Now let's talk about when to use what real quick, and then we will probably wrap up here. The countermeasures they're not foolproof, so you have to understand when to use what. First off, this is where the EW page and the RWR come into play again, is you need to know what you're seeing here. You need to know what's got you locked up. For example, an SA3 system, if that locks you up, or an SA6, that's an active guided or a semi-active radar guided system. Okay, so that would be a situation where we use chaff. Then you have something like, for example, the SA9, the Strela. That's an infrared missile. Okay, it uses a radar to lock onto us, but then once the missile goes hot, it's infrared. Okay, it uses heat seekers, so we would dump flares for that one. But then you always want to make sure that you're using things like, you know, certain tactics to avoid. You want to try to get the missile perpendicular to the aircraft at a high speed. When you dump your flares, don't be an afterburner. Okay, your afterburner can absolutely generate enough heat where it's going to sidetrack from the flares. When you dump flares, you always want to do 2 or 3 actually I would say between 2 and 4 in a cluster. Very, very rapid. Maybe spread apart. So like 3 every, half a second to 1 second, but you want those ones to drop very, very quickly, because you want that to create this massive heat pocket in the sky to get the missile's attention. Okay, if you just drop one at a time very far apart, it's not going to be particularly effective because it's not generating enough heat. Remember, you have to generate enough heat for that source to be hotter than the back of the engines, and that's why you always want to try to make sure you kick your afterburners off as well. If your afterburners are on, you're generating a significantly more amount of heat, okay, than you would if the burners were off. Again, put the missile on your 3-9 line, okay, off your wings, right on your right side. Try to keep it there. High speeds. Use things like the split S, okay. You want to dive down low for radar guided missiles. Get down low, get down fast. Use the terrain for masking. It's a lot of trial and error, and luckily DCS gives us that option. But I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, or if I think of anything that I might have missed on this system, I will be more than happy to go over them again, or add them below. So please make sure that you guys are leaving any comments or questions. I do read them. I do pay attention to them. I don't always have time to respond to them, but trust me, I am hearing you. Next thing coming down the line is we're also going to start, in tandem with the F-18 videos, we're going to start a mission editor tutorial series where we're going to essentially build a mission together that you guys can follow along with. We're building it from scratch, and literally it'll be a catch-all. There'll be a little bit of everything that I can think of in it, okay? All right, well, that's really all I got for you guys today, and I hope you guys stay safe and have a happy 4th of July, and I will catch you guys in the next one, as always.